All right, I want to stress this is both ye and ha. It is not just a normal old yeehaw. It is ye and ha. And welcome to the next episode of Season 16 of Mission and Dispatches. We are talking about Buckeye Game Fest tonight, and if we're going to do that, we have to bring in the master of ceremonies himself, our good buddy Ardwolf. Gary,
I have no official position whatsoever with Buckeye Game Fest or Buckeye Game Festivals, Inc.
Yeah, well, aside from, sort of party host at large.
Well, I have done that.
Yeah, pretty much. And then the guy who apparently needs to be talked into showing up again this year, despite how much fun he had last year. Mike, what the hell? Come on,
I know. I spent 3 or 4 years trying to get there. I finally made it last year, and now I'm back to where I was before I made it. So at least I've been to once. That's better than none.
I mean, the road should be cleared up by then, Lord willing.
Well, did you see this? Did you see the new forecast that just came out? I don't know.
Yeah, I know. My parents are living through it.
Yeah, so am I. I got more snow than your parents did. So,
maybe, but not much.
What did they get? Because
they dropped like 10 inches on Columbus.
Yeah, I'm looking at 18.
Yeah.
So the wall is now officially south of Ohio. That's good.
Yeah. Well, we didn't get a whole lot of snow down here. We got like the powdered sugar dusting of snow that rested on the 3/4 inch of ice. That was fun, right? When the street in front of your house turns into a bobsled track, that's always good. But we weren't here to talk about the weather, and by the time anybody's listening to this, that weather will all have changed and then changed back. So, we were here ostensibly to talk about Buckeye Game Fest, and so Gary, just a question for you: what was the first BGF you went to?
I'm not sure, but it certainly wasn't at the current location. That was about three or maybe 4 locations ago. So I want to say that was about 15 years ago, something like that.
Yeah, I was looking. I was cleaning some stuff out of my closet over the holidays, and I actually found my BGF 8 T-shirt. That I don't know why I got a T-shirt from BGF, but I did, and that was 06 or 07. That was one of the years they were up at the Radisson on 161.
I think my first year was the last year they were at that facility.
Yeah. I did 2 or 3 years at the Radisson. Completely missed them being at Great Wolf Lodge. And all the times I've attended since then, they've been at the Convention Center Hotel.
Which is a fabulous facility for any number of reasons.
It's a great location where they are. There's plenty of room to spread out. I think they end up, is it 6 or 7 full conference rooms they end up taking up at this point?
I'm not sure. It's not 8 or 9 actually at this point. I mean,
I guess once you fold the walls back, you're splitting up some
Oh yeah, I don't know how the hotel's tracking that, but it's a lot of space is the point you're trying to make.
Yes,
and it is. There's a huge sort of general boardroom, which runs an awful lot like the boardroom at Origins because it's the same. It's not the same organization, but it is mostly the same people that run it. Plus, they have a whole bunch of side rooms for a variety of things. One side room holds the library now, and that's actually a pretty big room on its own. They've got a room for the Artemis people. They've got the war room, which is quite large. They've got like a whole extra room that sometimes people run RPG stuff in, I guess. That's that big room across the hall from the war room. Although I'm not sure they had that last year, thinking about it.
So, yeah, in the past, they've had the office for the staff where they keep all the admin crap. They've had the, like you said, the library, the main game room, the kind of side room off of that they try to do some sort of small vendor room out of, which God bless the people there trying to, make a living and do their thing, but it usually comes across as more sad than anything.
Well, it's going to, we'll see exactly how this lays out when people get there, but it looks like it's going to be a more interesting dealer's room for wargamers this year because I think Decision Games will be there. Decision Games is supposed to be there, and they are advertising it on their site. I don't know if the Flying Pigs are coming back or not. It'll be interesting. Usually, if Mark and Denver can both be there, then they'll try to set up some sort of sales something or other. Denver's got a newborn, so that's challenging at this point. I bet.
And so that will be a little tougher. There was a company last year Age of Glory or something like that was set up in the game room, but was selling almost all War Games stuff. Like they had a bunch of VUCA stuff on the shelf. You know,
that was awesome. That guy was awesome.
Yeah, it was really weird. He totally should have been in the war room where they had a handful of minis vendors, some of whom also had some board games. But for whatever reason, he was up against one of the walls in the main gaming room where nobody was paying him any attention because they're all busy playing, you know, Carcassonne, the We Ran Out of Ideas variation. And it was wild. The guy had a great selection of stuff, a bunch of things from Worthington, from Decision, a whole lot of old magazines. Had some VUCA and Revolution games that he was selling. I mean, it was a well-stocked thing. And then the pigs had
great prices on that stuff too.
Yeah.
Those prices are awesome.
Well, I could have told you that the dealer's room would be much better last year because I wasn't there.
Yeah, well, we appreciate your sacrifice.
No problem.
But so in years past, the War Room, for the first 4 or 5 years that I had come back to BGF, the War Room was in the same place every year. And then across the hall, they had a room that had some minis, and they would usually set up some tables for pizza for the GMs one night. And then there was one year, the room behind the War Room down the hallway, they had set up for some RPGs, because that's the room where the Players Aid guys ran their Nations and Cannons game.
Yeah, I remember that.
And last year, they booted us out of that war room and stuck us across the hall where the minis guys normally had been, and they stuck the minis dudes and the tabletop gamers the tabletop war gamers all in one room together. Or the board war gamers. The minis guys do play on a tabletop. And they used what had been the war room for the consignment sale, which seemed to do really well. Big crowds in there, lots of folks buying all kinds of stuff. It was run very similar to what they did for the consignment sale at Origins when you wandered your way down through the labyrinth to find it. It was a very similar process, but they had booted us out of the war room to do that. Now, as I understand it, I think they are moving the war room back into there this year, but I don't know that for certain.
I don't really feel like it makes a big... Of course, it was in a different room last year too, right?
Last year, it was across the hall from where we normally had been.
Mm-hmm.
And this year, I think we're supposed to move back into the room where we've been the last several times that you and I were both there.
Well, it's not like there was a space shortage either way. And in either case, there's plenty of space for war games of all kinds, including usually a couple of real big ones.
Last year it did get a little squeezed because the minis dudes were in there with us, and they had a couple of minis vendors down at the far end of the room that were taking up some space. And it doesn't help when a couple of particular internet personalities set up on like 3 different tables and leave things set up while they're playing on one of the other ones. And it's like, y'all done over here? Oh, no, we're going to finish playing that one tomorrow. In the meantime, the rest of us can't use that table. Like,
well, I've been known to do that too. But to be fair, I will, the personalities in question, I would have given them preferential treatment personally because they are very important.
Yes. Well, there were a variety of personalities there, some of whom were more pushy than others. I'll say it that way. I'm trying to be polite about things here. But last year for Quad Fest, Mike and I were able to just basically take over a table, pop the Dragoons banner up and the Quad Fest stand-up sign, and we had enough room to run all the games we needed to run there, and even, spread out on a second table if we needed to. It helps that the quads don't take up a ton of space, so that was good. The guys wanting to put out monster games never lacked for space or somewhere to put things, whether it was a larger OCS type game or the big 8-player game of Littoral Commander that they had going. They laid out the entire map for A Most Fearful Sacrifice on
that was beautiful.
I say on one table, on one flat surface that I think was probably 6 tables collectively underneath it, because that game is freaking huge.
Well, the monster game crowd tends to not have a problem with space because they all show up on Monday.
Yes.
When there's nobody else there.
Yes, and they tend to stake it. Well, I think at least one of the monster games had wrapped up by Wednesday night, and or maybe it was first thing Thursday morning that they were packing up. But the monster games that stayed on the table all the way through like Saturday lunchtime were not in evidence last year, which was weird. I was used to seeing, first of all, not seeing Dave Murney there was a little weird.
Dave was there last year.
Yeah, but I didn't see him much. That's the problem.
Okay. Well, he's not coming this year. He's got family medical issues.
Oh, well, that sucks.
Yeah, no kidding.
I hope all turns out well with that.
Me too.
Because Dave was always a delightful person to sit around and chat with.
Dave is a fabulous fellow.
Yeah. Dave is a longtime cabbie who left town. It was pre-COVID that they moved out, wasn't it?
It was.
Yeah. They moved to be a little closer to grandkids. Dave was a permanent fixture at the OCS table at the Friday night cabs meetings. Him, Alan, Jim Reesner, back before Jim passed away. Those were the guys that, man, if there's an OCS game that was released in the last 7 or 8 years, those guys play tested it at some point.
Indeed, they did.
Usually 5 years before you got it.
Usually 5 years before anybody else even heard of it.
Yeah. Because they were play testing Beyond the Rhine when I lived in Columbus back in the mid-aughts is when they were play testing that one. So it was a while.
And that was right after the pre-pottery Neolithic, correct?
Something like that, yes.
Okay,
yeah, I think that was when they were busy. I think that was when they were busy putting the wall carvings on Old Man's Cave out in the Hocking Hills. Mike, you get to assume the role of Gary for a few minutes here.
And those carvings were of a most fearful sacrifice, the game board. It was beautiful.
Yeah.
And you took up half the cave wall. It was just nothing but that map.
Yeah. All right, while we wait for Gary to reboot StreamYard, anyone who's been watching his stream for the last few weeks knows what happened. He just had a browser crash. Either that or his wife's really upset with him. No.
Or
the away from the computer right now. That was my browser tab locking up. I think that's probably StreamYard.
Well, we figured it was either a browser crash or your wife was really pissed off with you, and when you came back fairly quickly, we figured browser crash.
Or I was going to say your roof couldn't hold the 18 inches of snow, and it finally gave out.
That could happen at any moment.
It's got 3 more layers to go through to get to him.
Yeah, that's true. I'm in the basement, so.
So, Mike, last year was your first BGF, and we've had some general impressions of it all. For audience members who have never attended a BGF before, give them a sense of what they're in for.
Go. No, it depends on where you're coming from. So I've been to Origins and I've been to like Mace and Fall Assembly, this really small conventions. Buckeye Game Fest, I think, is just right. I mean, you go in there's plenty of space, as you guys mentioned. You can set up, you bring any war game you want, or find somebody to play with. You're not going to have a hard time finding somebody to play with. Just bring what you want and sit down and play. And then, and the bonus for me is, compared to Origins, I don't have to stand in line 30 minutes for a cup of coffee in the morning. Or if I go to North Market, I get food right away. There's like 10,000 people I'm trying to fight over for lunch. It's awesome.
Yeah, we can get in and out of Barley's fairly quickly.
There you go. Yeah.
BGF,
which is not the case at Origin.
Oh God.
No, it is not.
I think one of the cool things with BGF, along the lines of what you're describing there, Mike, is that you're never at a shortage of opponents to sit down and play a war game with. And you can do that and find plenty of willing participants and not sit down with the same person twice.
Yeah.
And not that, you're actively avoiding other people or like you're working your way through the room just pissing everybody off or something, because you'd never be invited back to a subsequent BGF. But there are enough folks there and enough people willing to play and try a variety of different games that even if you're not a GM putting formal events into the calendar, that you're going to have plenty of stuff to play and plenty of folks to play with.
Yeah.
So
there's always been a ton, at least for the last several years, there's always been a lot of pickup stuff. And lately that pickup stuff has been creeping earlier and earlier in the week. I noticed the year before last, we had like way more people on Wednesday, like afternoon, than in previous years at that facility. And last year when I like rolled in for 20 minutes, there was like a ton of people there. I was like, what am I even in the right room?
Yeah. Apparently I managed to miss you by like a half an hour that night, because I drove to town on Wednesday.
I believe that is correct.
Yeah, we managed to miss each other briefly. This year I'm actually driving up the weekend before, and I'm going to do similar to what I do at Origins. I'm going to work, just work from my parents' place for a couple of days. And Wednesday and Thursday, I'm going to unplug at lunchtime and get down there for the afternoon and evening sessions Wednesday and Thursday, and then all day Friday, Saturday. So the net result is it'll be about the same amount of time at the convention, maybe a little bit more, but I'm getting in a day earlier in terms of actually being in there. And so there's opportunity to do a little bit more and maybe pick up the tail end of one of the monster games where I can, at least watch one of them in serious action, if not jump in for the last, couple of turns of one of them or something.
You might actually consider playing a game for recreational purposes.
Yeah, well, you missed it. That happened last year.
Yeah, so I heard. And I missed it. I was not there to gather video evidence of this supposed fact.
Well, look, if you believe, if you are willing to take David Thompson's word for it, then he can vouch for it because he was the opponent.
David's such a nice guy. He's not going to say, oh, yeah, Brant's lying.
I don't know if we have photo evidence of it. I have to check with Min and
we
see.
Do. We do.
Playing, but
we have evidence. Yes, we do.
But yeah, David was my crash test dummy because I had to make sure I knew all the ins and outs of the 30 Years War Quad because that was one of the ones I picked up when you weren't able to stick around. And so David and I played through one of the scenarios to make sure I knew what I was doing before I had to do it as an official event.
It's a very easy game system.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. But it was great. So somewhere in here, we probably need to have like a semi-official planning meeting and figure out, all right, what are we doing this year for BGF? Because usually we have this solved before now. Last year, we actually had a theme. Years before, we've just sort of, hey, just pick a game and do it. Do we want to do some sort of themed something this year? And if so, do we care what do we have any particular strong opinions on what that may be, or do we just want to put some random stuff in the schedule to help keep the BGF gods happy and just show up and play games?
Well, American Revolution.
That's a good point.
250th anniversary.
It's a very
we
good
can do
point.
some AMREV stuff. I can bring Liberty or Death with me. So,
and I'm currently playing War for America, so that kind of counts.
Oh, what do you think of that?
I'm about to the point where I'm going to do my final thoughts on it, but I'll go ahead and tell you now that it is, because this will come out after that, I guess. It's a great, fantastic game, but the rule book gets in the way a little bit. And my advice is don't avoid the game because of that. You're going to have to put some work into it to figure out some of the rules, but I think it's a good game. Very good.
Well,
game.
I've never seen that phenomenon in wargaming before.
Right, I know, right? And a lot of people get upset.
Shocked to find this.
A lot of people get upset at Gilbert and criticize the game. I'm not going to play this, and I'm not going to fool with that. But there's a good game there, and I think it's worth the effort to play it.
That is not having played it. That is my analysis of it as well.
Yeah, I think if they went through and they did because the rule book feels like it's at version 0.8. If they went through and rewrote the rules, made them a little bit clearer, made a few corrections to players, maybe it needs a second printing and do some corrections to the players' aid charts and everything, it'd be a great game. I mean, he's done Mr. Madison's War, which is a fantastic game, and the rule book is excellent, So
it almost sounds like you're saying somebody needs to hire a tech writer to go through and fix the instruction manual.
Maybe. And I said this in my playthrough. Gilbert knows his American Revolutionary history. No doubt about it. And you can tell that when he wrote the rules and he was designing this game, my theory anyway, what does that mean? That I think he knows what he's expecting, but I think to translate the ideas in his head to paper to get somebody else to get, out of the rules what he's putting into them, there needs to be just a little bit more clarity there. But fantastic game.
One of these days, I will get it on the table myself.
Well, that's what I was saying. Maybe that'd be something that would show up at Buckeye Game Fest. Who knows? If I make it.
Well,
I was just eyeballing the game shelf for American Revolution stuff, and it's pretty much Liberty or Death. Or I could bring Liberty or Death.
That's all you have.
If you don't like that, I could bring Liberty or Death.
I like Liberty or Death a lot, actually, but even I, not the most dedicated AmRev wargamer, even I have more AmRev games than that.
Well, the other one that I have in Academy's Birth of America series, I have 1754, which doesn't really help the whole 250th anniversary of the American Revolution.
No, it's not the 250th anniversary of the French and Indian War, is it?
Exactly. You're making my point.
We're a number of years too late for that.
Yeah, exactly.
You are helping make my point. I appreciate the assist.
I haven't played that one, but I have played 1775, and I liked 1775 for what it's worth.
Yeah, that's a good one.
Yeah, I just it's just not something I have a lot of. You want to do Cold War stuff? I'm good. Like I can bring 4 shelves of that shit with me.
I have no doubt.
So now part of the problem is I can't see the other shelf real clear, like on some of the lower shelves, but I'm pretty sure there's not like a trove of hidden American Revolution games over there. just waiting to be discovered.
It's not hiding behind all your Civil War games. That's what you're saying.
But
Yeah,
he
exactly.
could be mistaken.
I did unload the one Saratoga game that I had. That actually went out on the swap table at a fall assembly, so that left us. I'd have to go over there and really know. Problem is, most of what's on those shelves are boxed RPG products, so I'm pretty sure there's not a lot of American Revolution stuff over there.
You don't even have Washington's
Do you have Tricorn and D&D?
Nations and Cannons.
Yes.
I have the PDFs.
Okay, there you go.
I do not have the books. I have the PDFs. So we had Pat on the we've had Pat on. Pat Mooney is the designer of Nations and Cannons. We've had him on the podcast, and we did have him on an ACDC seminar when we had him and Harold Buchanan and Merle all together on a Merle Robinson from NSDM had a panel on wargaming the American Revolution. So we brought the three of them on together to talk about that.
I'm told it's a very high quality production.
It is. It is gorgeous. It is fantastic. It looks great on a shelf, and it is the kind of engaging product that you want to read. There are a variety of. This is one place where the RPG guys have the wargamers' butts kicked, and that is books you want to read. There are far more of those in the RPG space than there are in the wargaming space.
Oh, that's a bit of an apples and oranges comparison, but okay, I can't really argue with you either.
It is, but if I'm sitting down to read a book, and I'm going to sit down and read a rule book, and I anticipate enjoying reading that rule book, odds are I am enjoying reading the RPG rulebook far more than I am enjoying reading the wargame rulebook.
Well, I can tell you I didn't enjoy reading the Goss rulebook very much.
Yeah. But yeah, Nations and Cannons is a great product, but it is in fact an RPG, and I don't feel like GMing an RPG. So
fair.
What's the monster manual like for Nations and Cannons?
It's exactly the same monster manual, but before every creature name, they put the word British.
Yeah.
So there's British orcs, British neo-Otyugs, British gibberlings,
the British purple worm,
right?
The British gelatinous cube,
the British kobolds,
right?
The British mimic.
Yeah, he just looks like a Hessian. That's all. Yeah. I think American Revolution is fine, but I'm down to liberty or death unless somebody's got, like American War of Independence quad they want to bring with them that, we could pick up fairly quickly.
Well, somebody, either 3W or Decision did one, at least one, I'm reasonably sure, but I've got somebody surely has a copy of 1776 that they could tag along with, right?
Probably, yes.
Probably me.
So, well, that requires you to show up.
It does. It really does.
Yes, that's exactly my problem too, is I don't expect at this point, and we are recording in late January.
Yeah.
I don't expect to be able to attend. So, we'll be missing my copy of 1776.
So wait, I'm driving all the way to Ohio for you to not show up?
Well, I'm doing what I can here. I might walk in for 20 minutes like I did last year. That's possible.
You're killing me, Small.
But then I did that last year and you weren't there. That was like the only 10 minutes you weren't there.
That was the day I was driving to Columbus. Yeah. Let's sigh. All right. Well, either way, I've got to actually get a couple of events in the event schedule for BGF. This is probably a good place where we, veer into a slightly different topic. Gary, that was one of the things you mentioned is that pickup games are fairly easy to be found at BGF.
Very much so.
And I think while that is handy and convenient to those of us who are experienced convention goers and who have no problem walking into a room and going, hey, I got a game, who wants to play? For someone who is new to conventions or a little less socially outgoing than we are, or not 100% sure what they're getting themselves into. One of the challenges that BGF has is that a lot of the war games are either arranged in advance between people who already know each other and happen to be meeting up at BGF. That's like the one time that, or one of 2 or 3 times throughout the year that they meet their friends for some gaming, or it's something that is organized on the spot and it's it's Grant and Alexander going, hey, we're going to be starting this in an hour. Who wants to join? Or you're walking by and Russ says, hey, we're about to play, Case of the Catalans. You want to sit down and play? I'm like, yeah, sure. I'm not doing anything else. Which actually happened 3 years ago. And, or, hey, we're playing John Company today at 5. Who wants in? And I foolishly said me. Not that it's not a good game, but we had 6 players and only one of them had played before. So there was a lot of stumbling through what we were doing.
That makes for a sluggish pace.
Yes, it does.
I really want to try that, actually. That looks like a fascinating game.
Now that I have done it once, I think I would be much better prepared for what I'm doing in the future, but it is challenging when there's, not very many people around the table who are familiar with the game and the processes of the game and kind of the rhythms of it. But that's one of the downsides to BGF is that if you're not already okay being vocal and saying, yes, I would like to play this, or, hey, I have this game, who wants to come join me? It can be a little overwhelming. And that's one of the things that the BGF organizer folks have asked us about doing is, hey, can we start putting more war games in the event schedule in the program, because then people who aren't as comfortable just saying, yeah, I want to play, that they can sign up for something and be assured of having a seat. It's a smoother on-ramp for a new participant walking into that room. And that's one of the things we've tried to do over the last couple of years to help support that is let's smooth that on-ramp for folks.
This is a huge problem for wargame conventions, right? So, we are all fortunate enough to know wargamers already that we can play games with, whether that's at a convention or on Vassal or whatever.
Yeah.
Some people are not in that position, and when they show up to a convention, they might be looking around and think it's super cliquish because, all these guys know each other already, right?
Yeah, I mean, it is. I mean, it is.
Super. I mean, well, I don't know if I want to use that term, but it's I
not in a negative way, but it is. There's a bit of a family reunion vibe to these things.
Yeah, that's absolutely right.
So, but yeah, to your point, you can be intimidated if you're a new person showing up. So
if you are a new person showing up, how would you go about finding where to go to maybe find out where some of these which games are taking place and if they're looking for players?
Well, so I mean that's going to be through the registration site. That's BGF does use tabletop.events. So you can find some information on the master BGF site, but the event schedule for formally scheduled events can be found on BGF's tabletop.events registration page. And that's one of the things, going back to, hey, kind of we're having a meeting here, right? Let's workshop this in real time for the audience. What are we going to do this year? Although if you guys aren't showing up, then I don't really care what you guys want to do this year.
That's true. My opinion is kind of irrelevant, at least as of today.
Yeah. But those folks can find the event schedule there and can pick and choose which ones to sign up for at that point. And Mike, we saw this last year with the Quadfest games. We had at least one registered participant in every one of those games. And for several of them, we had 2 registered players for the games. I think one of them, we actually had 3 because we ended up running 2 games. But for several of them, we had one person signed up and another one just walk up and say, yeah, sure, I'll play. And so here, grab a seat. And then at that point, we shift fully into GM mode. We don't have to play as an opponent with somebody, but we were still able to get games running and on tables and people playing and having fun. That's one of the advantages of having the games scheduled in the event program is that it does give new players the on-ramp to get involved. And then they get a chance that now they've met their opponent. Now that's at least one person they know they can talk to about, hey, I've got this game, or hey, what do you feel like playing? Or that opponent can say, here, come over and meet this other person and you guys have similar interests. And now let's get a game together going there. And it's an opportunity to grow that circle that Gary's talking about many people come in with in the first place. So it's BGF is that weird hybrid of, glorified regular local game club with, oh, by the way, let's bring in a bunch of people from out of town to come play with them.
Yeah. I mean, even the boardroom side of BGF does suffer from that because of its ultimate evolution out of cabs, right? Where it's the same people showing up week after week after week for the most part. And everybody knows each other and they have arranged, yeah, this is the night that we play. It's the third whatever of the month. This is the week we play 18XX or whatever.
Yep. And So I don't pay a ton of attention to the main board gaming room, aside from going over there 2 or 3 times during the week just to go take a bunch of pictures and see what else is hitting tables. And, oh, hey, that looks kind of cool. What is that? You will occasionally see some of the crossover war games being played in that room, something like War of the Ring or Memoir 44. You're not going to...
Commands and Colors. I've seen a fair amount of Commands and Colors in the boardroom.
Yeah, that's as far as you'll get into the serious war game space in that room. And I don't know if it's that the war gamers, like, people just understand, okay, the war games go over in the war room, that's why we've got it, and because there is a dedicated war room for BGF, those things move over there. Or if it's just that the folks that are in the boardroom aren't interested in anything heavier and are unlikely to set up anything much bigger than that. Probably some combination of all of the above. But it's rare that you see anything that groggy, that crunchy over there from a war game perspective.
Not once have I ever seen anyone playing War in Europe in that boardroom.
Yeah. But you will see Twilight Imperium.
Absolutely. And Twilight Struggle.
Yes. Is that really a war game? No, I'm kidding. We're not going there.
Haven't we done at least 3 shows on that exact topic?
At least, probably more, but
probably
no,
more.
we're not going back to that. But there's plenty of crunchy stuff. It's just not the crunchy stuff that's in the historical war game space.
Oh yeah, some of those heavy Euros are really pretty crunchy, to be honest.
Yeah.
I should know. Those are the only ones I buy.
One thing that I have noticed with BGF is that over in the war room, you will occasionally have folks pull out something that is in development, something that is in testing, something, here's an idea that I am working on, please help me noodle around with this and make it better. I don't really see that in the main board game room much, if at all. Now, I'm not in there much, so maybe it is happening and it's just, they see me coming and they pack it away. That could be the case. But I get the sense that the main boardroom, like you said, Gary, it's a 4-day-long CABS meeting. It's not, it almost doesn't really feel like a convention, although in part because CABS meetings are themselves bigger than many local conventions.
That's true.
That I get the sense that the wargamers are more willing to pull out something that they are working on or noodling with or want an opinion on than the more casual board gamers. Is that
highly
something
plausible? I mean, but part of that is I could just recite off the top of my head a number of things in development that have popped up in the war room at BGF, but that could easily be because I am in the war room at BGF and not in the other room. There could be all kinds of exciting things happening over there for all I know.
Yeah, that's entirely possible. Mike, I know you've only been there the one time, but did you even wander over to the main boardroom aside from the one war game vendor that was accidentally in the wrong place?
I poked my head in there once or twice, but like Gary's saying, most of my time spent in the war room.
Yeah,
I'm
going through last year's stack of business cards that I picked up at all the different game conventions and events to see if I can find that dude's card.
It's like you said, yeah, the only reason I went through there really was to get to his booth.
Yeah, exactly, which was a perfectly valid reason because it was a pretty snazzy booth. I want to say it was Age of Glory something or other.
I think it was Age of Glory. That sounds right. And the one really cool thing he was selling, he had Command and Colors Napoleonics, but he had every expansion with it. Remember that? There you go.
Yes, he did.
That's Steve Jackson. And he was selling it for, I think, $200, I think, for all that stuff. And everybody's like,
Well, hell, the core game alone's running about $200 on the secondary market right now. So.
Yeah, and it was just I had to talk myself off the ledge there. As I was like, where am I going to put something like that, let alone play it?
The audience at home could not see it because we don't record video, but I'm busy going through the stack of business cards that I accumulated last year to include that one, and all the stuff that I brought back from Gamma Expo. And one of the cards that I've got in my stack is Steve Jackson. Yeah, look, I don't get to flex that much in the game business at all. Really, for folks that aren't in it at all, the fact that I email a lot of people to try and get stuff for us to cover or coordinate things for the website seems like a big deal. But I'm really a very small fish in what is already a not big gaming pond. But I have
It's very easy
cell
to
phone
become
number.
a big deal here in wargaming, Brant.
Huh?
As you're aware, it's very easy to become a big deal in wargaming.
Well, it's easy for you to delude yourself into thinking you're a big deal in wargaming.
I suppose that's true.
Yeah.
Actually, yeah, it's Age of Glory. I just found my card. Age of
Okay,
Glory.
good.
Ageofglory.com is the website.
Okay, good. There you go, everybody. It's ageofglory.com, and I can now stop looking. Thank you.
And hopefully we'll see them back this year.
Season 16 of Mentioned in Dispatches is underway, and we couldn't do it without our Patreon supporters, and especially the regimental captains at the top level. The Armchair Dragoons would like to thank Chris Anthony, James M., Joseph Knorr, Paul LaFontaine, Miles R., Stagger Wing, Fred's Dog, and Fred 2, Kevin Bertram, Michael Sunborg, Patrick Garrity, Catastrophe Games, Hethwell War Games, and Greg from Pico Armor. They help us keep our objectives in our line of sight. You too can support the Regiment of Strategy Gaming as a Patreon supporter at patreon.com/armchairdragoons.
So Decision Games does have this convention on their site as one that they are attending. It's this one. It's, Historicon, Origins, ConSim Expo, the usual suspects, plus their Foxconn that they do in Dallas. I think the website.
That didn't happen last year.
Well, the
due to no fault of Decision Games. I will add.
Yeah. So it turns out. What ended up happening, though, while Foxconn itself didn't happen, one of the other locals right there happened to have an event space available to him. I don't know if it was, a church fellowship hall or something. And so he just got in touch with a whole bunch of the locals and said, hey, Foxconn's not happening, but I've got this space. We can just go set up a bunch of games and play. And they still ended up getting like 50 dudes show up and play.
That's pretty awesome, actually.
Yeah, it was kind of cool. Now, look, Dallas is a fairly large footprint of people as well. So, finding 50 folks in the Dallas area who play war games shouldn't be that hard.
Definitely not.
And Mo wasn't one of them. Go figure.
Oh.
I know, right?
Disappointing.
Yeah.
He probably had a hockey game.
Yeah, that could be actually. It was a holiday weekend and all, so that's not unreasonable. But yeah, so it'll be interesting to have some of the vendors back. That said, I don't ever really expect BGF to become, and I think it would feel a little weird if it did become much of a shopping convention, the way something like an Origins or Gen Con can be for people. Obviously, Origins isn't a primary shopping convention for wargamers. There's plenty of places you can spend your wargame dollar.
I beg to differ.
I was going to say, and yet I continue to spend hundreds of dollars.
Well, but here is my question for you on that, Gary. While I know the budget can be fairly large for you at Origins, how many different booths do you spend that bankroll at?
For war games? There's about 4. I think Enterprise Games, Decision, Dietz has been there. I bought a couple things from them. There's at least one more. Academy, but I have everything from Academy that I need until Stellaris comes out, at least. So I can't say that I've actually shopped at the Academy Games booth in several years.
Yeah, and there might be a one-off somebody else that's there this particular year, but not any other years. Those are oddballs here and there, but it's primarily going to be the Enterprise booth, the Decision booth, and maybe one other wargame booth. And then besides that, you're off buying non-wargame stuff. And even there, I think, most of us probably stick to the same 2 or 3 tried and true regulars, right?
Yeah, I mean, I would say so. The last couple of years, I have walked out of Origins with more RPG stuff, but that's frankly because I have almost all the war games I want that somebody would be selling there. So, but yeah, I would say I haunt, Cubicle 2 and Chaosium. I always buy something from them. There's probably a couple others that I habitually frequent, but there's always a new one too. I mean, I have never bought anything from the Mothership people prior to this year, so I had walked out of there with Mothership last year.
Had they been there much before this past year?
I'm not positive that they had.
Yeah,
I don't remember seeing them, but then again, they're just, I don't know. It could be the same people that were like running one of those OSR booths last year, and they just didn't have Mothership because it wasn't out yet.
Yeah. Well, and World of Game Design used to rep a bunch of those different smaller companies before they kind of imploded after some questionable business practices.
I don't know anything about that.
I'm trying to be careful about how we describe. Look, these things have been written up in news articles, so it's not like it's a state secret. You can go read about it at Rascal's website, or I think ICV2 might have covered them, or Board Game Wire might have covered them. So it's not like this is state secrets or something that
right.
The news is out, but there were a variety of smaller companies that had been repped by those. I will say that over the last decade, going back pre-COVID, probably 50%, maybe a little more of my RPG purchases have all happened at Origins. I don't tend to buy a ton of RPG stuff from my local game store, from Gamers Armory. I'll get maybe one thing a year from them that's an RPG thing, two at the most. I'll pick up some war game stuff from them, obviously. It's at Origins, I tend to not buy a ton of war game stuff. I'll get a couple of things here or there. In some cases, like I'll order something from Don ahead of time and pick it up from them.
Oh, I've done that.
Yeah, I think a lot of folks have. But it ends up being a little more focused at Origins, where the bankroll is there for serendipitous discoveries as much as anything else, and intended as such. So it's not like, oh man, I totally blew that on a lark. Like the whole point was to just do that. That is not something you're going to do at a Buckeye Game Fest, though, just because there's not enough vendor stuff there to do that. It'll be interesting to see this year, besides, Decision, who does show up. There was it 2 years that Blue Panther was there? It was 2 or 3 years that Blue Panther was there.
2 or 3. And
sold plenty of stuff. I just don't know that Steve really wants to keep hauling stuff around to conventions. He'd rather show up and play games. And that's direct from Steve. That's not like me inferring that. That is Steve saying, I'd rather play games at conventions than have to run a booth.
That's a completely reasonable position.
Absolutely.
Which didn't he do last year? Wasn't he there at Buckeye Game Fest, or am I just dreaming that?
He was there for a day or two.
Yeah.
He was there. He wasn't there super long. We did, had a nice conversation about some of the business shenanigans that were going on with the world at the moment. But I think he had come to town to do some consultations with the guys from Catastrophe and with somebody else. But while he was there, he still, jumped in a game or two and, was able to play some stuff while he was present. So, but he was not running a booth or selling stuff or anything for anybody.
Yeah.
So I do think BGF could work for a smaller publisher who gets the word out ahead of time and make sure that folks know that they're going to be there, and make sure to get a couple of the games in the event program so that it is clear that we're not just here in a corner trying to, sell a couple of games and hope for the best, that we are here integrated into the convention to do stuff. You've got a chance to play some of our games before you come spend money on them so that you can, try it before you buy it kind of thing. But it gives you exposure to those games. And if there are things that you've only heard about, oh, hey, this company's going to be here, let me make sure I play a couple of the games. Maybe the designers come along, the publisher might be the one running the booth there for them, whoever it is, that for a smaller publisher, and, I'm not trying to like strong arm somebody into it, but somebody like a Legion War Games or a Revolution Games, somebody in that tier of the publishing, in the publishing throughput, I guess, in our hobby, that's probably not a bad fit. It's going to be low overhead for the space at the convention. It's a pretty low stress convention. Plenty of opportunity to sit down and play a game in the same room where your booth is. It's not like you're going to be anchored to the booth. You can be 10 feet away at a table and playing a game. And if somebody walks up, you turn around in your chair and go, hey, what can I get for you? I mean, it's pretty low stress for those guys. But, Gary, is that something that, maybe we should be making a few calls to some people and saying, hey, you really ought to come check this out?
Well, I absolutely agree. I mean, certainly the cost of vendor space there is astronomically lower than it is at something like an Origins or a Gen Con. And yeah, there's not as many people, but there's also, a fairly serious group of wargamers that gets there every year. I would be pleased if publishers in general, wargaming or not, would have a bigger footprint at BGF.
Yeah.
Well, publishers that I like. I don't care about the ones I don't.
Fair enough. But yeah, like Flying Pig was there last year and they had the booth and they were able to play a handful of games at the table right there in front of their booth. And, they had a couple of things over in the gaming hall, like Most Fearful Sacrifice was on a table and I was going, oh my God, that thing looks awesome. But I didn't see a ton of integration in the scheduling with the pigs being there. And it was something that we talked about with them while we were there. I'm not sure they necessarily knew what to expect coming in. And so it was sort of it was a high price recon mission, but it was a bit of a recon mission for them. And I think if they do end up coming back in an official capacity, they'll probably recalibrate slightly and be a little better targeted in what they do there.
Sure.
Which would be cool. They brought Herman with them. So, they got the designer right there and they've got, David Thompson does have a game coming out with them that they sat down. David was teaching a couple of folks to play that game.
I believe David has a game coming out with everyone.
I think it's a race between him and Herm as to.
Yeah, I was going to say.
Yeah.
There's a race there for sure.
Herman's up there too,
He is. He absolutely is.
Yeah. Like I said, that if I say level of publisher, it comes out, sort of snooty, like, well, you haven't really leveled up. But, a publisher with that level of kind of annual sales and game mix, product, range of products to bring in, that's probably a good fit for something like a BGF. You can afford to bring 5 to 10 copies of everything in your catalog that's in print because your catalog isn't GMTs that you need an entire warehouse to haul around.
And I don't know enough about the industry to answer this question, so I'm going to ask you guys: would the publishers even do something like this? Games that aren't out yet, have a designer show up with a game that's close to going to print, or just and let people play test it and see what they think, or get feedback that way. Is that doable?
Yeah,
sure.
That's what Tim does with Catastrophe.
Oh, no, well, I was going to say Tim because that's what he was doing, but I would think that if you really want to play test your game, that I don't think you'd have a hard time finding play testers or something like this.
Well, Tim in particular has never spent Buckeye Game Fest twiddling his thumbs behind a booth. He is constantly demoing games for the people that are interested in those games, and there is no shortage of those people.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, it's in the particular case of Tim with Catastrophe Games, he does exactly what you're describing there, Mike. What Tim doesn't do is set up a booth to sell Catastrophe Games stuff. Like he had some of his stuff in the Blue Panther booth when Steve was there with the booth, but Tim's not worried about trying to sell stuff. He wants to play games, and in some cases he's playing other people's things, but in many cases he's got his games on tables, teaching and demoing and showing and playing and whatever whatever the games happen to be. He's got them on the table and let's play. He does that a bunch. That's his big and he's pretty close in driving distance right there. And Christopher High, who also works with him and helps with some of the development and production stuff, lives right down the street in Cincinnati, so it's real easy for him to get up there. So Catastrophe has a decent presence at BGF because they're all in very near proximity and easy to get to. But Gary, I think we need to make some phone calls and lean on some people to show up.
Well, obvious candidates might be Capstone Games.
Yep.
Because they're down in the Cincinnati general area, I can tell you that.
Yeah, they're in
Academy Games is an obvious pick. I mean, they're down the street basically.
Except that they would show up Friday night to start setting up.
That's possible. Hey, last Origins, they were actually there setting up at least the night before.
They were there like Wednesday noon is when they rolled in last year.
Yeah,
which was astounding. Anybody that had money in the pool that year lost it.
Yeah,
so that was fairly astounding. I mean, there's bound to be some others nearby. Gary, can you talk the boys from 10K into showing up and like putting some stuff on the table there?
The problem with those guys is that, well, several of them used to live in Ohio. None of them live in Ohio right now. And 2 of the 3 principals at 10K are on the far side of the country. And Todd is, I think, in Michigan or Wisconsin or something like that. But Wisconsin is, that's a decent trek from, to Columbus. And I have no idea where he is in Wisconsin either. He could be up in Green Bay for all I know.
Yeah. Having done that trek, it's doable, but it sucks.
Yeah, exactly.
So it's, I thought they were closer. So that was my bad.
Well, like I said, some of them used to be. Now, I think they are getting pretty close to like presentation mode. And when that happens, then I do think that Buckeye Game Fest is a good place for them to show up because they could run their game, and I think people would be interested. They've kind of got their own crew of people at this point to do the play tests and the demos and all that stuff. So,
oh, that is cool. That is cool. That is good to know. All right, so we've talked a bunch of war game stuff with a little bit of comparison of BGF to some other things. Other things that happen at BGF. Obviously, there's the main board game room, which is a general board gaming, tabletop gaming convention. And that's where the bulk of the people actually are for Buckeye Game Fest. They're in there playing medium to heavyweight Euros the majority of the time they're there. You're not going to see a game of Monopoly or Scrabble break out, but you'll see 5 different variations of Ticket to Ride and 10 different variations of Carcassonne and who knows what else. Plus whatever the cool trendy thing that just came off of Kickstarter was.
There's tons of that.
Yes. Oh yeah. The Cabs library does help with folks like grabbing stuff to, grab and go play and they also have, it used to be the traffic cones. I think they've refined it slightly where they've got some markers, some players wanted signs that, hey, come sit down and play a game with us. And so they'll be advertising that, yes, they're looking for players. If they've got a game that'll seat up to 5 and they've only got 3, they'll put the sign up for a couple of minutes and see if somebody else drops in before they start playing. They do have the library there. It is the same library that you get at Origins, which is a massive, massive library that is a luxury to have at BGF.
It really is an amazing library of board games. And they even have some war games in there.
They've got at least one wall locker that is majority war game.
Well, we could have a debate about some of the titles in that locker. But as we've said, we've already covered this topic at great length.
And to the librarian's credit, she is actively seeking assistance and recommendations for what she should be stocking that would help appeal to some of those different niche audiences, whether they are the train gamers or the war gamers or the whatever others. She is happy to take recommendations, and if you've got a point of contact with a publisher that she should reach out to, she is more than willing to take that off your hands and to go chase people around. She's happy to do that.
Yeah, I will just third what Brant and Gary said. If you're going to Buckeye Game Fest just to play war games and you plan to spend the entire time in the war room and do nothing else, at least go see the library because it is very impressive. Very impressive.
There is the Artemis Spaceship Bridge Simulator,
which is amazing,
at BGF. That costs you $15 a trip if you're doing it at Origins, and it costs you $0 a trip if you're doing it at BGF. And generally, the guy brings enough sets of equipment to do 2 separate bridges that you could either play head-to-head or play cooperatively, which is 5 or 6 different stations that you've got to man. It's a decent crowd because you'll have Captain Helm's weapons, science, and comms. So 5 different you'll have 5 different stations in each bridge, and you just walk right in when they're ready to load one and sit down and play.
Yep.
Now, can they run the Kobayashi Maru scenario on that thing?
Never asked.
But I bet they can.
Probably, but you'd have to ask. But more importantly, did we mention it doesn't cost $15 per person per trip to do this thing?
It's we did it like 4 or 5 times that one year.
Yeah. Yeah, and there's video evidence of us.
That's like $100 down the drain at Origins.
Until you were asked to leave.
Well, it is a kind of a high intensity experience. So I don't know that I think I might have done 2 in a row, but I'm not sure I've done more than that in a row.
Yeah,
like Command Ops. Yeah, you can only do it once or twice and walk away.
They have on occasion had the giant diplomacy board set up out in the lobby where you can play diplomacy with the big walking around map where you can, feel like
they had that last year. Yeah.
Important Grand Mucky Muck. there is stuff to do besides just the war game space if you want to, spread your wings and do a couple extra things. That's totally cool. They do have a raffle that you get a couple of raffle tickets just for registering for being there, but you can buy additional raffle tickets. And there are the usual sorts of community charities that the raffle does help support. Some of the prizes are pretty impressive. They get a couple of pretty big, like multi-$100 prize packs for some of the bigger prizes, but they'll have lots of stuff down to just, single copies of small games that you can get. And the raffle works similar to the way we now do them at Origins, which is you're dropping your tickets in the bucket for the specific thing you want to win. And they'll raffle that stuff off Saturday afternoon, Saturday evening time frame. So plenty of time for you to make the decision, to grab what you're going to get before you go home. There's plenty to do, plenty to game with, and plenty to have fun with. What there isn't a very robust vendor presence. We've talked about it some. Not a lot of the only game publishers I've really seen there are either war game folks that are there for the war room, or the very small press single product or single product line with only 2 or 3 things in it kind of folks that are there because BGF is dirt cheap to be at. But they've got like one person in their company just sort of sitting at a table hoping somebody comes over and talks to them. Again, this goes back to get more integrated into the convention, make sure you schedule multiple events for your game, show it off, but you're not getting a lot of publishers there. You'll have a handful of the lifestyle booths, the folks that are selling the dice or the 3D printed desktop tchotchkes, or there's been a t-shirt vendor there off and on over the years. You'll have somebody selling the, cool over, shoulder bags kind of stuff. Last year they had somebody there that was selling pens, P-I-N-S, not P-E, that had some pretty funny ones that I took pictures of to send to people, but they're not ones that I would necessarily like buy to wear the pen attached to something. Like, I don't work in a restaurant where I need flair on my suspenders, but some of the pens were pretty funny. But it's not a robust shopping hall, I guess is the way to say that. You're not going to get a bunch of seminars, panels, discussion kind of stuff, not just in like the Origins War College vein, but in the broader, here's a handful of game designers, let's have a panel. Here's some fiction writers. Here's some people to talk about how to get noticed as getting published in the industry. Like, you're not going to get any of that kind of stuff. They'll try to pull a panel together here and there once in a while. Mike, I think you were at one year last year where there were more people on the podium than there were in the audience, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was Mark Walker, Herman Lutman, and David Thompson. And then I think it was me and I can't remember. It was like 2 people in the audience.
Yeah. I think Charlie was over there with you maybe, but not a big crowd. And because that's not something people expect at BGF. That's not something people are looking for at BGF. That's not the kind of thing you're going to get added on much. You're not going to get a lot of non-gaming things happen at BGF. Sorry, go ahead, Mike.
That's the reason to go, though, right? That's what we've been saying.
Well, yeah.
You want to go play war games, just tune out all the other stuff and sit down and play war games.
Well, that's as an aficionado of some of these smaller conventions, I will back Mike up on this. You can have a pretty dedicated play experience without a lot of distractions.
Yeah. And who were the 2 guys? I can't remember their names. One of them, Brant, that they showed up. They had like 5 or 6 games, and they sat at their table. They had that one table the whole time, morning to night, and they just played war games one after another.
No, Charlie was one of them. I don't remember the guy that was playing with him.
Yeah. I mean, it was awesome to see that, right? I mean, they just sat down, and I talked to him, and he's like, I've got a kid or a couple of kids, and I can come here and just tune all that stuff out and play war games all day, every day. And they had a great time.
I think downloaded the kids on grandparents or something, and that was his one weekend a year that he gets to sit there and just play.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah. So there's there are definitely things that if you're wanting to just sit down at a table and have nothing but an endless parade of games cross that table for the weekend, you're in the right place. If you're the kind of person that wants to play some games and do some other stuff, depends on what that other stuff is, you may not find that other stuff at BGF the way you would at some other conventions. And a comparison there, Mike, when you and I went to Mace that one year, a couple of years ago, the dealer hall at Mace isn't the footprint probably isn't much bigger than the one at BGF, but the options were definitely more impressive. That's one where there is a little more shopping expected to be there. That's just that it's a different evolution in the convention. BGF does not have a big RPG presence.
But over the last couple of years, they have had more. And I know that is a thing that they want to do, is have more RPGs and presumably other kinds of games. But I didn't pay any attention to them at BGF. So while there isn't a big role-playing presence there, that number has gone up over the last few years.
Yeah.
Well, Gary, weren't you going to run Traveler last year?
Yeah, I was gonna, but that was, that wasn't like an open invitation type of deal. That was the people that had played with me the previous year.
Yeah, but still RPG.
Well, yeah, that's true. I have run an RPG at Buckeye Game Fest.
There you go.
Yeah, it is something that has been increasing, but again, when you're starting from zero, everything is an increase.
Yeah.
It's every one of those local conventions has its own specific, mix and feel and vibe and flair to it all. But it's a mix, and we've just been describing kind of BGF's mix. Not that it's right or wrong, not that we're advocating for one over the other. We're simply informing folks of what to expect if you're there. It's a great low stress convention to sit down at a table and play some games. And one of the other things, we didn't explicitly call this out, but it is kind of nice about BGF. If you're not playing in a game, being able to sit down at a table and watch somebody play and have a conversation with those folks, BGF, it is unlikely, I won't say it doesn't happen, but it is unlikely that if you sit down at a table with some other folks and want to engage in a conversation about the game, and hey, what are you playing? What do you think? What are you trying to show me something about it? It's unlikely you are going to get told to buzz off.
I've never seen anything like that happen.
I'm not saying it won't happen, and I imagine that, you can always find that one dude who is going to be overly annoying and ask too many questions, but I've yet to see it happen at BGF, that folks are willing to take the time and kind of explain and not say, hey, buzz off, I'm trying to concentrate, that they're happy to engage in a conversation around the game. If you sit down and try and strike up a converation about baseball, you might get told to buzz off. But if you're
maybe not. There's probably a baseball game going on in the boardroom.
Yeah, well, there's that. If you're there to, talk about the games, go for it, man. Folks are going to be, interested and engaged and willing to discuss the game with you, which can be nice. If you see something that you might have been interested in but never got a chance to play, go ask somebody about it, and it's okay. So
it is a very relaxed and casual atmosphere.
Yeah,
and that's nice, so there are people who will say, oh, Origins, 80,000 people. We're, a person of our mutual acquaintance. I can't deal with that. But you don't have to worry about that at Buckeye Game Fest.
Have we missed anything?
Probably.
Yeah. I'm sure we have.
Fair enough. Is there anything else that you can think of that we ought to have talked about?
Other than the Amazing Traveler game that happened a couple of years ago. I can't think of anything, but we did actually mention that. So,
well, yeah. And is it happening this year?
It's very unlikely for two reasons. One, I probably won't be there. And two, I'm already running Traveler with 10 players, and I've got my hands friggin' full. So,
yeah. All right. So, audience, this has been a bit of a ramble, but it was our annual discussion around BGF ahead of it actually happening. To that end, show up and join us, and then you too can help ramble about it and evangelize the great and wonderful Buckeye Game Fest to yourself, and you can do it yourself to other people down the line. That would be really cool.
It really is a good convention.
Yeah, if you do show up at BGF, man, don't be shy. Say hello. Flag one of us down, especially if there's something that you learned from this that helped encourage you to show up. Let us know, because then we can go back and tell the organizers at BGF, see, we did that for you, and it will earn us absolutely nothing from the convention.
Perhaps a golf clap. You might get a golf clap.
You might get a golf clap. I'd be happy with an extra raffle ticket. I mean, not that I'm going to win anything, but it would be cool. So
there really is. Historically, there has not been a great deal in that raffle for me, but it's a lot of stuff, including some pretty impressive MSRP on the prizes.
Yeah, that absolutely the case. And if nothing else, you could win something that you could then, wrap up as a birthday present for somebody.
Also, whoever goes to BGF gets a free game.
That's true.
So,
Is it for every attendee?
as far as I know, yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, they may run out at some point, but
They-
I've never actually seen that happen since they appear to have access to the entire Rio Grande Games warehouse.
They come around and clip your badge with like some kind of clippy thing that shows you've got your free game. Yeah.
All right, cool. Awesome. Audience, thank you for joining us as we've rambled our way through a discussion of BGF. Look, man, we're 16 seasons and like 90 episodes into this. If you haven't figured out by now that our shtick is to just have a conversation while we're recording, then I'm not sure what to tell you, man. It's just
Apologizes, folks.
we've been doing this for 7 years. I mean, it's just sort of this is who we are, man. This is not a lot of sugarcoating this. We do appreciate you taking the time to listen to us. We hope you are able to join us at one of these conventions, whether it is BGF or Origins or the Fall Assembly or Winterfest or Circle DC or any of the other conventions where we might show up at some point around the world there. Gary, I suppose that you being unlikely to show up at BGF at all means you're not going to do a counter clipping show from BGF either, huh?
That does logically follow from the proposition.
Yeah. Well, see, if you were going to be there for Monday night for a counter clipping show, I might show up for that one live.
I mean, that would be cool.
Don't discourage him from showing up.
I mean, there's nothing, Brant, there's nothing that says we can't have a special presentation of the counter clipping show on Wednesday night of Origins or something like that if somebody brings the Wi-Fi with them.
Ooh.
Okay. Now I got to go deal with Wi-Fi shit. Thanks. Something else on my to-do list.
Happy to help.
Yeah. And by help, you mean not help at all.
I mean, make suggestions that I don't have to follow up on.
Yeah. That's my job in my day job, right? You know, it's obligating other people to do things. Hey, you know, it'd be really cool if you would go do this. So it's I think that's my karmic payback with the Dragoons is everybody else volunteering me to do stuff. So
that's true. You really need a large staff to run the Dragoons, Brant.
I got plenty of people to write stuff, which is great. What I need is, a couple other people to do some other things. So, besides McKenna taking over the booth at Origins. So,
which she runs like a General Patton, by the way.
Yes, that's good. Yeah,
it is a wonderful thing to see. So cool, folks. Thanks for being here. We got plenty more coming later this season. We've got a couple of designers we are busy trying to lock down specific dates on, but there's a handful of different crowdfunding campaigns kicking off this spring for some different things that we're going to see about designers and or publishers joining us for some of those. That's as committal as I'm going to get right now until we finish getting them locked down. We actually have, I think, 3 different practitioner-focused ones coming up this season. One of them is going to be talking about Connections Online because this is the 5th anniversary of Connections Online. We've made it half a decade with that thing, which started out as a bit of a COVID-era lark, but it turned into something that people really enjoyed, and so we kept doing it. And so we will, we'll be covering a little more of the practitioner side than we typically do. Thanks for being here. We appreciate you listening, and we'll catch you next time on another episode of Mentioned in Dispatches.
See you, folks.